Hello and welcome to Clifford's AboutFace Real Talk. Today we are here with two very special guests who I'll introduce in a second. However, we are here to talk about something incredibly personal, something that has an awful lot of resonance between the three of us, and predominantly, apart from exploring different aspects of our life, the reason we're here to talk about, or rather the topic we're here to talk about, is a racially motivated attack that we were all party to and witness to some 25 years ago, maybe? At least, a couple of decades ago at least. So without further ado, to my right, I have Richard. Richard, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello. Did you want more than that?
Yeah, go on then. Richard, what do you do?
I am a gardener, considering a career change, but probably a bit old for that, but yeah.
Hey, no problem. So, Richard and I go way back to our first meeting, which we'll hear more about subsequently, at Fairfax School in Birmingham, Sutton Coldfield in the West Midlands. Good to have you here, Richard. And to my left, we have Mark Jones. Mark.
Hello. Yes, Mark Jones.
Mark Jones, indeed.
Yeah.
And Mark, what do you do yourself?
I'm an accountant.
Fantastic. So here we have, us now as grown men, and what we will be doing is talking very much about what led us in life to get to the point where we are now. Gardeners and accountants and trainers for AboutFace, etc. So I guess we'll just get into it. So we start our kind of discussion, if you like, with our meeting at secondary school. As I've mentioned, it was, it would have been August. That's when people generally.
Yes, right.
August, September.
September in the
Of what, 89?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, August 89.
Might have been 88. 88 or 89.
89. August time.
Doesn't really matter, does it?
It was a long time ago.
It was donkeys years ago.
Yeah.
It was still, the era of bad fashion and questionable music, maybe. As a matter of fact, some would even say the music was better than it is now. I probably think it probably was. However, so we arrive at Fairfax School, and what I can tell you is, initially at Fairfax School, we'd started, but I hadn't met you guys, so I didn't really meet you guys until our second year in Fairfax, because when we got to Fairfax, I was initially in Fairfax remedial section of the school. So I was in the classes for children who were very slow and very educationally challenged for the first 12 months that I was at Fairfax, and only actually discovered I was in the remedial section of Fairfax School when I opened a book one day and saw a sticker in the back saying Fairfax remedial section, and immediately thought, oh my god, it probably wasn't a good idea to skip the day when they had the SATs.
Right. And you were the only one in there who knew what remedial meant.
Yeah, everyone else I went around the school, or rather the class, and telling everyone, do you realise we're in the remedial section of the
yes.
school? And everyone was delighted. Everyone was absolutely over the moon. I was
That sounds good.
I thought we'd won something.
Yeah.
So I remember going immediately to my school teacher and saying, right, I didn't realise this was a remedial section. What do I have to do to get out of this class and into higher sets and everything? I demanded all of the school curriculum, of which I looked at it and thought, oh my god, this is horrendous, because it was like Speak and Spell, Peter and Jane books. And I said, how long is this meant to be? And they said, kind of 12 months. I said, I will have this done in about a month and a half. If I do that, will you put me into a different class? And the school agreed. And that's how I met you guys. So, can you guys remember at all your first kind of meeting me, or actually, how did you guys know each other beforehand?
We knew each other from
Yeah, we went to a primary school together.
school,
And
Rainy
then,
Hill.
My mum absolutely was not going to let me get taught by a certain teacher, so for the last 2 years of that I got sent to a different school.
Yeah, because I remember not seeing you for a while,
Yeah.
and then I remember going to some sort of thing at your house, and then you fixed my transformer.
Well, you know,
Yeah,
technically
the wing was
minded.
stuck in the
Yeah,
one that turns from a.
fire engine, wasn't it?
No, there's one that I don't know. It could have been, but I think it was the one that turns into like a jet fighter from.
Yeah, the arm was stuck or
Transformer.
something.
The arm was stuck, and I was all upset, and you were like, "Just, yeah, it'd be fine." And then you had this maybe a little penknife, and you
Excuse me.
took out the arm from the thing that it got jammed in. And I was like, "Who is this guy? I'm going to be friends with this guy. It's going to come in handy."
Yeah, Swiss Army Jones.
Yeah, Simon Jones.
Simon Jones. If we'd have known that you were quite proficient in the carrying of knives, it could have come in handy
Yeah,
a few
well,
years later.
Yeah,
And then,
could have opened a can for all of them. Opened a bottle.
Yeah, that would have been helpful.
And then we used to go on like bike rides in Sutton Park because you were probably one of the. Was it you had a mountain bike or your dad's mountain bike?
It was my dad's.
It wasn't far off a penny farthing, but it was
No, I was
like
gonna say,
the mountain bike
It's
of penny
in the
farthing.
loft at his house, and I had to move it the other day. Gosh, I thought I was going to fall through the floor.
Wow,
It's
Heavy.
it's a big old bike.
It's a Rally Maverick,
Wow.
and it's steel. It's solid.
Wow.
I don't think it's a tube. It's a
It's
tube.
solid.
It's just
Wow.
solid metal, very heavy.
Never break.
No. So yeah, I remember. Yeah, I remember that. And then, you know, like everyone, choose your school, turn up, and I remember there was quite a few from Maney Hill. I think there's only one or two came from the school I came from, and then so there was like Det, John Plant, Stu Small,
Yeah, little group.
you, a couple of other people.
Dan Jones.
Yeah, Dan Jones. Yeah.
His aunt now has a fully Australian accent.
Does he?
Yeah.
Proper good day.
Fantastic.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's because he lives in Australia. It's not just because he's like,
He's a
Well, what shall I
massive
do?
Neighbours fan.
I'll just get myself an Australian accent.
Some people do that. What's a lot of it?
Yeah. Yeah, my sister's got one. She's over at the moment. She's got a proper
Full on Aussie.
twang about her.
Wow.
Yeah, she immigrated over there 12 years ago, I think. 13 years ago. So yeah, and remember kind of seeing you on the playground, football and that kind of stuff, but we weren't in the same class, so it wasn't that it was like avoid this person or avoid that person, but you know, it's like you hang around with the people that you kind of in class with
Yep.
most of the time, or you know, if you're into football or if you're into studying the flowers or whatever at lunchtime,
That's kind of what you do.
you kind of gravitate towards people who are doing a similar thing, don't you?
I just found my first prize Eisteddford flower arranging
Oh, wow.
certificate the other day in Mum and Dad's loft.
Is
I
that
mean,
a real thing?
my mum did it, to be honest.
Oh, okay. Right.
But
Now the cat's out of the
under the
bag.
guise of me.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how I felt about it. Obviously now being a gardener, I'm like, yeah, brilliant.
Started early on.
But back then it was like, oh, keep
You
that.
kept that quiet.
keep that really quiet.
No idea. You won a flower arranging.
Yes, that's me, little flower
Did you know
arranging
this?
fellow.
Neither did I, but I'm
It was
absolutely
my mum.
astounded
I
that
know.
your mother did that. I'm shocked. Such an upstanding.
Just that I even
member of
entered it
society.
was sort of questionable at the time.
Yeah.
Obviously, now I'd be proud of it, but back then, when you're a little kid and judgment is rife and
Yeah.
standing out like the kid who does the flower arranging. Anyway,
Slightly digress.
I think I'm not sure, Cliff, but I think. Do you remember the first day of school? Because you may or may not have been involved in this, or maybe it was you actually. So I got off the bus.
Christ, what did I do wrong?
And Alex Detmar trod on this kid's shoe. This kid was called Pele.
Yeah.
He's a big lad. He's at the school
My
next
cousin.
door.
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
The one across the road.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was at Wilmot.
Yeah.
So Detmar stood on his trainer, like white trainers.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you know, put your school shoes on afterwards. And he was not happy with Detmar. And Detmar's a big lad, but being Alex's friend, I said, "Oh, don't worry about it," or something like that, because Pele was like
Yeah.
starting to say, "What the
What
hell
the
are
hell?"
you?"
Yeah.
Yeah. And then he kind of turned on me. Do you remember this at all? It's not ringing any bells.
Not
Okay.
at all.
You
It's the
weren't
first
there
time
then.
I'm hearing the story. And Pete, when you see this back, understand I didn't know him at the time, so feel free to contact us and you can be reached up on the quiet. That's fine.
Do you know him now then?
Yeah. It's my cousin.
No. I can't believe it.
Still your cousin.
Oh.
I've called these, yes.
So if you had been there, you'd have diffused it. But anyway, I think one of us got thrown over a hedge by Pele.
Wow.
I can't remember if it was me or Detmar. But anyway, that's completely irrelevant because neither of you were there, so just forget that.
The introduction to Fairfax. Life in Fairfax.
The funny thing about that is, one of my very first memories of Fairfax was it could well have been the first day. I had a fight on some lad who turned out to be Detmar. On the very first day.
He was busy on his first day,
He was
as it turns out.
Apparently fighting my whole family. So, unbeknownst to me, he'd already trod on my cousin's foot.
Yeah.
And possibly been thrown over a hedge. An hour later, in a completely different school, he manages to get into a fight with me. And, you know, went on to be fairly good friends with Detmar, so that's interesting. But if we kind of think about the time now that we actually get introduced to one another. So I've elevated myself out of the doldrums of Fairfax, and I'm now walking into our second year, class, if you like. And I don't remember the actual moment where we all met, but I'm fairly certain we were probably sat fairly close to one another and started to just talk. And this is where we start to get into kind of like the genesis of this story, and why this is so significant is because we're all from very different backgrounds, or I'm certainly from a very different social background, social network. My life experiences up until that point had been very different to perhaps either one of you guys. So what I think allows me to gravitate to you guys as friends in this class, of bearing in mind, of 1,800 pupils, I'm fairly certain, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, because it might just be how I remember it. I don't believe there was another black boy in the whole school, in the whole 1,800 pupils. At the time at this time that we're talking about, I don't remember that.
Remember there was Tim Askill.
Tim Askill, right.
Elizabeth was there for a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then she went to Wilmot.
Yeah.
Right, so Tim Askill.
But he was the year above
Year
or
above.
2
He
years.
was.
2 years above, I think.
Okay, so you've got some names there that I hadn't remembered. But okay, so
That's all I can remember though.
I don't remember any other than Tim. Tim was dual heritage. As I remember him, his sister, and his oldest brother, Matthew.
That's right, yeah, because you were quite good friends with him, weren't you?
Yeah.
And Matthew was there, I think, for a year, maybe, before.
Yeah, maybe he was leaving as we were arriving because he was a couple of years older than me.
I think so. But what's interesting then is that, and this is really, really key to us forming this friendship, is that I know I felt very alienated in Fairfax. That I didn't have a peer group that looked like me. I didn't have anybody in the school who understood me culturally. At this point, I'm being looked at by the school system, the teachers, with an element of caution. I'm a large kid. I'm a large black child. Most of the teachers there hadn't had any experience of dealing with black children. So I would be constantly told things like, well, you know, you don't know your own strength, and be careful in certain situations and scenarios where other children wouldn't be told that. So I was very isolated. And here I have this kind of peer group developing with yourselves. I'd come to that school with Jonathan, Cottrell, Paul Barron, Anna Stone. I came with friends, but again, culturally very, very different from me. They all, Jonathan was in our kind of set for school, but Anna and Paul weren't. And what was interesting was I made these two friends who seemed to have no regard for colour whatsoever. It wasn't part of our conversation, like, oh, Cliff's black, you guys are white. It didn't ever feel like that. What's your recollections of how we grew as friends?
Because we were just mates. It wasn't. I didn't turn around and go, "Oh, there's my black friend Cliff," or "There's my red-headed friend Fizz." I didn't care. We were just mates. We had a laugh together. You know, I ran and collected the football when it got kicked over the tennis nets. You know, that was my.
Oh, yeah, that was your thing.
That's the thing I gave to the group. You know, and yeah, but there was no. Yeah, I never thought, oh well, there's my black friend Cliff. It was just there's Cliff, there's Fez. I've used the P word. I'm sorry, we're going to have to stop. I'm sorry, we're going to have to stop and go back. I do apologise.
That's quite all right.
I'm sorry, mate.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I, you know, we were just mates, and then, you know, I remember what was that? The computer game we used to play in the morning before we got the bus at your age.
Lotus.
Atari, on the Atari.
Yeah.
You know,
Lotus Esprit.
And Esprit Turbo.
It was just cutting edge at the time.
Yeah.
But, you know.
Sorry, STE.
It was just.
Not just STE.
Yeah.
That
It was
made
just
it better graphics.
You know, you and me mate, just like.
Yeah, I don't.
And, you know, you had your mum, your dad, your family, your sisters, just like him, mum, dad, sisters.
I don't know how we got to walk into school together. Is it just?
I think, yeah, didn't you get off like the jockey and then
you
walk
had
up
two
to his
buses
house,
to get,
and
didn't you? So
then we'd
probably
either walk
realised
or-
that we were getting the 104 from the bottom of the road
Yeah.
where you were changing, and then probably thought, oh well, might as well meet up before then, and then it turned into like a good half hour whilst my mum and dad were like wiping the cobwebs off their eyes, getting up. Oh, there's Cliff on the computer. You turn it down a bit, probably.
I remember that. Us all kind of trying to get on the computer before
we had to go.
went to school.
Yeah.
And I remember sometimes getting there and you'd already been on your drums and stuff like that. Yeah.
You were very
bonkers.
popular.
Yeah.
But I don't know how we got. I think, like you were saying, just happened naturally. It wasn't like, oh yeah, we're gonna do this thing, and like that's what it's like when you're kids, isn't it? You don't sort of have. Well, you do, but you don't realise it. Have like racially things going on in your head, but in as far as who you choose as your friends, it's more situation, isn't it? Really, like your friends are just the people you
have a laugh with.
You get the bus with, and then it just kind of happens, doesn't it?
I'll tell you what's remarkable about that as a scenario, and this is something that I think it's worth us considering and thinking about, because whilst this happened really organically, we're in the same class, there's conversations maybe that happen outside the class, we're walking from lesson to lesson with each other, this leads to perhaps meeting up outside of school, ending up walking to school. A lot of the time we didn't catch the bus to school, we walked from Fez's through the park and so on. So all of this happens in a seemingly very organic way, but my world at the time, living in Sutton Coldfield, there were very few black families who lived in Sutton, in Streatley, where I lived. So as my isolation isn't just confined to school, it's confined to my whole environment. So there are things such as that's happening to me, unbeknownst to you at that time, whereby there's lots of racial incidents that are happening when I'm not with you guys. I once kind of had a funny turn and collapsed outside a shop that I worked at, and woke up hours later in the same spot. Nobody had stopped to help me or that sort of stuff. There'd been other kind of attacks. I'd had racist kind of literature put through the door, burning crosses. They used to burn crosses in fields in Streatley. There was King Standing, which was kind of what separates Sutton from Streatley, and they had the Ku Klux Klan. It was the 4 Ks, not 3. King Standing Ku Klux Klan was the gang that kind of operated in the area. So all of this is happening, at the same time, I've got this real kind of friendship. And actually, I would even say that we spent so much time together over these years. For me, it was much more than kind of just mates. It replaced my family. My parents weren't always at home, so, you know, your mum and your sister definitely became family to me. They referred to me as family. They fed me when I came round. I'd get told off for the same sort of stuff you would get told off for, and there was an expectation that I would know the rules around there. Your mum as well. Your dad was more aloof than your mum, but your mum again would hold me in the exact same standard. So when we got caught wagging it, she told us all off. We all got told off, and
or drinking fizzy drinks
and stuff like
and then
that.
she said, "Do you know how many teaspoons of sugar are in that can?"
I remember it well. I remember it very well.
She'd probably still say that now if you were to drink a fizzy drink in front of her.
And she'd be very right. So, hence we've got water today. So for me, it was a very, very deep connection. Which is why the events that happen that we're here to discuss, you know, I guess the racial attack that happened seemed to have impacted, although I didn't realise how much it impacted me at the time. In this discussion, I guess we're about to find out in what way it's kind of impacted and what the kind of long-term effects of that impact was. We'll be back after these messages. If you like, or the incidents that we are now going to discuss is the racial attack that happened that involved us during the very early 90s whilst we were still at Fairfax School. During my time as a motivational speaker, I often talk to people about this attack, what it did to me personally, my experiences whilst the attack was happening. But equally, I will often mention what was going through my mind in relation to my brothers at the time. And really, the whole feeling of utter kind of freefall. I'm out of control. The world is impacting me, and I'm in a fight literally for my life at that moment. What happens at that juncture? So whilst my thoughts on this are well documented, one thing I don't think I've ever done, particularly as an adult, is have a conversation with these guys about their experiences during that incident. So I'll set the scene for you, and then guys, feel free, you can either interrupt me as I'm speaking, or when I hand this over, you guys can say how you remember it. We'd gone to a disco at Sutton Rugby Club. Sutton Rugby Club is situated in Walmley, and the way in which you get to the building that is Sutton Rugby Club is down a very long driveway. In the night, as it was then, there was very little lighting at all. So we've gone to this disco, we are in the club itself. I remember during the disco night, if you like, dancing away, kind of trying to have a good time. It was one of those scenarios where most of the girls were on one side of the room, most of the lads were on the other side of the room, feeling very awkward. And at some points, I think I'd danced with one or two girls there, school friends, people who we knew. But I remember there being a group of lads there that I wasn't familiar with, who did nothing but stare at me the whole time that I was there, and I tried to ignore it, whatever. When we left, it is pitch black outside, and we are walking towards the main road where we are to be met by Gaynor, who's going to pick us up, or Amanda. Mark's sister Amanda is going to pick us up and take us home. because I think we were due to stop at Mark's maybe that evening. We decide, I can't remember which one of you decided to suggest that we have a race.
Okay.
Do you remember that?
Yeah, I remember that because that's why you were ahead of me.
Yeah.
Because I was with Steve, chatting to Steve Corbett, and you two sped off as you did, because you were both pretty quick in those days.
A long time ago.
Long time ago.
Yes. So someone suggests we have a race, and off we run. I think that Mark may win that race. I'm in like half of a suit. I think I look absolute fool because I'm dressed like one of the four tops. I'm in a suit that is way too old for anyone to wear to a disco. I don't know what I've done as. But I remember it being the suit I also wore for my sister's wedding. So it was a Ciro Soterio suit, by the way. I remember.
Nice.
It was very, very nice. And I don't know whether I didn't want to get it all sweaty and ring. I don't know. But I stopped running. Mark ran off into the dark, as it was. Rich is somewhere back there, walking and talking with Steve Corbett. And at the point we all kind of reconverge. So Mark has now slowed down to wait for us. I've slowed down a bit for Rich to catch us up, and at the point we kind of get together near the end of the driveway, it happens. What's your recollections of that point onwards?
Do you want to go first? I don't mind.
I don't mind.
So, I don't remember going for a race, but I'm sure that happened. I'm not questioning that at all. Then got towards the end of the drive, and then there was these individuals who were racist. I remember...
How did you know they were racist?
Well, it was the language they were using.
Oh.
Shockingly enough, the language they were using.
There were a lot of niggers around.
Yes, indeed.
I remember that.
I was with my nigger friend, and then I don't remember a huge amount about it because, I was not any kind of fighter person. I never tried to get involved in that or try and be, you had these people trying to beat the crap out of each other at school, so they were the hardest in the year and all that.
Yeah.
Should I mention Jonathan Rowell or not?
Well, yeah, got my ass kicked by him. But anyway,
Only because you didn't want to hit him back, because he was like tiny.
Yeah, but I just, whenever there was fights going on and stuff on the fields and stuff, I
Not
wasn't
interested.
No, it just didn't really make me feel, not very well. Really, just sinking thing in your stomach, just nasty. So, so we got towards the end where you come in, and they were kind of backing us up against a fence. There was some fences on the houses either side as you entered the rugby club, and then I don't know how many there were. I don't know how many jumped on me or jumped on you or what happened, but I got kicked unconscious pretty quick. So when you say what was going through your mind, like a size 9 was going through my mind from a couple of different people, stamping and using me like a tap dance floor. And then I woke up on a lady's car bonnet.
I remember that.
Who was kind of giving me a bit of a telling off for this, terrible behaviour.
Yeah.
Which I was like, what's going on? And Ben's dad was there. Rog was there. He'd, come and done something. And then my sister pulled up, and she was very distraught, very upset. She'd gone and got her boyfriend who lived not too far away, and maybe his brother had come as well. I don't know. And they came back. She was very distraught, as you would be seeing your brother. I'm sorry, I don't know exactly how involved you were with it, so I'm saying your brother, but your brothers having that happen to them. That was. I haven't got the massive recollection because, like I said, I got we got backed up to the fence, and then it kind of went dark, and then I woke up on a woman's car bonnet, being told off for
being on
for
the
being
car
involved.
bonnet.
What are you getting involved in this sort of thing for? It's like,
Bastard.
oh yeah, I wanted this. I came out for this.
Just had it polished.
I'm trying to repolish it with my back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've the actual event, not a huge recollection of.
Before I come to yourself, Rich, I can give you my recollection as to what I saw that involved you. It's funny, as you were talking about it then, honestly, the detail in which I can piece together, it might as well have happened last week. It's vivid. And it's funny, I couldn't tell you what you were wearing, but I remember the kind of block parts of the event. I remember as the fight started, you were quite right in saying that you knew they were racist because of language. To my recollection, we are talking about 3 rows of 5, because I remember them identifying themselves as we're the lodge. Back then we knew what that meant, because Falcon Lodge had the reputation for being Europe's capital of the National Front. The reason I know this is because I had a paper round, and on one of my paper round days I'd opened a newspaper, and the centre spread was a picture of our school, and this headline of the, and bear in mind it's a national newspaper, this isn't a local newspaper, this isn't kind of like Birmingham News, this was in Sky magazine. And it said, the National Front capital of Europe, and our school was in the picture. So we knew that the lodge had a reputation for racism. So you've got these 3 rows of around about 5-6 people across. And you're quite right. So the language starts, nigger, and you guys being accused of being, friends with the nigger and stuff like that. And then this lad stepped forward, who I believe his name is John Lane, gingerhead lad, glasses on, and he kicks me to my right leg, like full on belts me in the side of the leg. I grab him, push him backwards, and say, I'm not looking for any trouble. I don't want to fight. In my mind, what's happening at this point is, oh my God, I'm going to get you 2 in trouble, because at this point I'm thinking, all right, how do we get out of this? But I'm absolutely petrified of the fact that, where are you guys? So I remember at the time, as I pushed him back and I'm talking to him, I'm scanning left and right, not only for how are we going to get out of this, but also, where are you? John Lane's brother, Gerard, older brother, steps out of the crowd at this point and says, are you hitting my brother? And I respond with, I don't know who your brother is, I don't know your brother, not knowing that these 2 are related. As they rush towards me, I remember you being hit, and that is how you end up on the bonnet. I think you roll off the bonnet at the time, but you're hit and go onto the bonnet first. Then I think you're on the floor, because whilst I am on the floor, I'm looking at you at this point. I see them kicking you and so on, but I'm trying to fight this guy here so I can get up and get over to where you are at this point. So that resonates, and I think at some point somebody helps you up and you slump back on the bonnet. That's when you woke up. I remember that, and I remember being very, very scared. I'll tell you a little bit more about what's happening with me in a second, but if we go to you, Rich. So, what's your recollection?
My recollection is slightly different to that, because I remember some parts of it very well, because, and it's weird because it's like I don't want to make it about me, because it's not about me.
It's about all of us, Rich.
Because I'm not the one who got my head kicked in, or the ones. So I was with Steve, and you 2 were ahead after your race, and I think it starts before, like the conversation starts before we get there, me and Steve. So I say I only remember it from my point of view, which I say isn't the important point of view really, because it did affect me because I didn't get my head kicked in, and I stood there and watched like my two best mates get their heads kicked in, which is a horrible thing to do. Obviously, going on in my mind is, well, should I, try and help them? What can I do? And also, I'm terrified because, like you were saying, like fighting is not my thing either. It just makes me feel like kind of sick. And despite at some point supposedly being the third hardest kid in the year, right? That's not me. But so as far as the story goes, I think my lasting memory is more the feeling of guilt from my point of view of not helping you. It's like I always think like if I could ever go back to one point in time, it would be then, and I'd get my head kicked in with you as well, because I wouldn't feel like I still feel bad about it, even though we've talked about it subsequently, and you've said like don't worry about it. But the fact is that I'll always feel like that. So that's my sort of lasting memory, which is less about actually what happened and more about how it made me feel. I think.
Honestly, Rich, had we had the time machine, could we have gone back to that moment? It was terrifying enough to know that was happening to us all, and I know you downplay your kind of involvement in it, but the way I honestly feel about racism and racial attacks, anything that happened from a racism kind of perspective, is nobody, witness or participant, walks away from that unscathed. Everyone gets damaged, everyone's scarred by that. There is part of me that believes that those who were attacking us, and I maintain that it was us, Rich, there was no secret whatsoever that we were all together and friends, etc. People would have seen us together and so on. You are part of that trauma, whether you sustained injury physically or not. Collectively, even those who are attacking us don't get away from that scenario unscathed at all. So, time machine or not, I would never have wanted you to have been in harm's way, because I didn't want Mark in harm's way, I didn't want to be in harm's way. If anything, I think it's an absolute blessing that you had the
cowardice.
Well,
it's not cowardice, man. You were talking to Corbett. You were just, it wasn't like you were walking along thinking, I think there's some racist morons over there. I'll just drop back.
No.
There wasn't any of that. I mean, I've no idea why the hell we decided to go for a run. We would have been, well, I certainly would have been half cut. So
We'd had a pie.
Despite the watered down beers.
Yeah.
But hey, we were only
the running race would have been a
17 or whatever it was.
very wiggly kind of slalom type of a running race.
It probably took us 10 minutes.
Yeah. So there was no cowardice. You
No, not at all.
weren't hanging back trying to avoid something. It was.
The thing is, I do remember I remember you at one point. You actually did give out some, you were beating one of them up. I think his name was Ed actually. Do you remember?
Yeah,
it's like a little kid.
That rings a bell.
And I was like, come on,
Get him! Easy.
So I do remember that moment.
Okay. I just remember the wooden fencing coming at me quite quick, and then don't really remember a lot. And then I remember Amanda arriving, being very upset. And
you lost a shoe. Remember that?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh,
Terrible.
I didn't remember that, but yeah, you're right. I lost a shoe. I think I went back and found the shoe.
Yeah, I think you did.
Either I went back and found it, or somebody had picked it up for me. But I did get the shoe back. What happens when the physical fight actually begins? So, as I'm being attacked, I remember glancing over to my right and I see you get hit. I'm aware of you, because when I glance up, I see you. But what happened is, in the fight, punches are coming in. At this point, I realised there is no talking my way out of this, because we'd done the whole, I'm not after a fight. I'd kind of sized it up. I'm looking, I'm thinking, this isn't the time where you say, we don't want to fight, I don't want to fight, and everyone just walks off. This isn't about saving face by everyone getting so, he didn't want to fight. This ain't happening, it's going to be a fight. So...
Well, I don't know if a fight's the right word. I think attack is the right word.
Here's the thing.
You say fight, you think of one person versus one person, or, there's a rumble, you think of a couple of people versus a couple.
Yeah.
You don't think, there's 15 and 1.
You don't generally, but believe you me. And here's the thing, because if you're unconscious at the time, what you won't be aware of is how long that fight lasted for. It lasted a while. So, as they come at me, I remember Gerard Lane diving on top of me, and we are tussling, we're rolling. He's trying to kind of draw his arm back to punch me, but because I've got him so close, there isn't much he can do by way of punching. I think he's trying to headbutt and all sorts. And at this point, I can feel the kicks are starting to come in. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Here's the interesting part. Honest to God, to this day, didn't feel a single punch, didn't feel a single kick, nothing. Because adrenaline is really pumping through the system. I'm still clocking where you guys are, and in my mind, what the overwhelming feeling isn't one of fear. I'm not scared at this point, I'm not. I'm embarrassed. I'm thoroughly embarrassed. But not unbeknownst. What I do know is I have a reputation for being the hardest lad in our school. Me and Kev Farmer, hardest lads in the school. Not sure how I got that, apart from the fact I'm probably the biggest lad in the school, biggest black lad in the school, and maybe some people find that intimidating or whatever. But it's not like I was known for fighting. I weren't out fighting weekends. That weren't me. I didn't hang around with the fighters of the school and stuff like that, because we weren't. We weren't that. I forgot his name. The guys you arrived at school with is Anna Stone. Yeah, Paul Barron. Johnny.
Yeah. I wouldn't have, kind of put Barry in the fighters of the school.
Funnily enough, Baz, as he was known then, was more likely to have a fight than we were.
But from my recollection,
yeah.
And I'm not trying to sound derogatory towards the gentleman, but I think he was about 4 foot, wasn't he?
Probably less than that at the time.
So that's why I'm saying, we were hanging around. I remember you and Baz were, mad Liverpool fans.
Yeah.
On playing the football, doing the keepy up and stuff.
That's the one.
So I wouldn't have really said, hanging around with the hard lads in school.
Not fighting material.
No.
But I had this reputation, and not only did I have that reputation in our school, I had it throughout Sutton. I'm not even sure how I didn't promote that. I didn't walk around telling people that, but I was, given this title. So as I'm in this fight, what's going through my mind is almost like I've been exposed for not being as hard as everyone now thinks I am. I'm thoroughly embarrassed. I'm worried about you, and I'm also glancing up and seeing the girls we went to school with, the girls we fancied at school at the time. I'm seeing, other classmates. I feel like this is an utter spectacle. I'm honestly, I'm just embarrassed. And what was interesting was I remember seeing somebody running towards me. So I'm on the floor, I've got Gerard at close quarters. I'm glancing around, I see this Doc Martin flying towards me. And I remember just rolling like my whole body and Gerard to the one side and watching Gerard's eyes explode out of his skull because his mates booted him in the head. And I remember almost finding that hilarious at the time. So this is all happening that we are tussling and fighting for our life. So I get up and I'm walking backwards, but I'm throwing punches. At this point, you're on the bonnet. You're speechless, tears streaming down your face. And I'm walking backwards towards the road and I trip and I'm in a car. I turn to my right, and it's Amanda. She drives. Bearing in mind, her actual little brother is still in this melee. She told me to shut the door, and she drives, and she's screaming, like to the point where I'm not sure how she's driving the car. She is screaming. She's beside herself. She keeps saying, "My brother, my brother, my brother." She circles round. I cannot remember at this point whether she goes and gets her fellow at the time at this point, or whether she does that after she circles round and picks us up. But she circles round, and before I know it, you guys are now in the car. I can't remember, because I know her partner at the time and that come and get involved or whatever. But then we're home. And that's pretty much, I think adrenaline wears off, maybe I'm starting to feel the pain, etc. I don't know what happens at that moment, but of that night, that's where it ends.
I remember being at my mum and dad's and you were there, at least I think you were there, and waking them up, telling them what had happened, and the old tap works, whatever you say, were in full effect from me again. Whereas you were like, yeah, whatever.
Great face in it.
Which again seems a bit wrong. And I remember sort of moving on a bit. Remember the next day, which you might have been ill. You might have been coming on to, I don't know. But I remember going into school and then feeling like so not with it, like not able to be at school. That I think it was Mr. Thompson sort of recognised that I wasn't in fit condition to be in class, so he just kind of took me out and on some like errands, posting stuff and whatnot in the school van, and then we got back and he said, "Oh, you can go home, I suppose, if you're not feeling too good." And as I walked out the gates, there's Mark Jones walking in, like black eyes, face hanging off. Like, all right, Fez. I was just speechless. What the? Here's me going home. The guy didn't get beaten up. What are you doing here? And you're like, yeah. And you went into school as I left.
Yeah.
Which made me feel like even more of what would you say in those days? A fairy?
Well, I don't know. Yeah. I remember I was just bored at home. And then I remember that evening, or that afternoon, coming out of school, but not going through the gate because there was just a load of them there. So I walked
to carry it on.
Walked home across the field. I went through the Rectory Park.
Yeah.
Walked down through Rectory Park.
Yeah. I remember that, and I'm not sure whether it's subsequent conversation that I've had with you where you told me about seeing Mark coming into school. I don't think I'm at school the next day.
No, I don't think you were.
I don't think I was. The following day, the day after that, I remember being in my school uniform, sat on the edge of my bed. Again, the overriding thought for me is one of embarrassment. Embarrassed because I don't quite know how I'm going to have a conversation with you because I got you into that issue. Don't know how I'm going to look your parents in the eye because I feel like the catalyst of why that happened. So I'm very scared about what this means for our relationship. That's what I remember. So I'm sat on the edge of the bed and I'm thinking I don't know whether I can get to school or not. And I was walking downstairs, I don't know, probably have a drink or something, and my dad happens to be in the house, which was unusual because my dad worked a lot of hours and it was unlikely that he would normally be there at that time. So he asked me why I wasn't at school, and I told him. So this is now 2 days after this event, this life-changing event's happened. I've gone home, but I've got no one to talk to. I haven't been able to talk to any family about it. So I said, I got into a fight at school, and I think when I get to school, it's going to happen again. and he said, go to school. And I was like, yeah, but you don't understand. It wasn't just an average fight. There was a lot of people. A lot of them are older and don't even go to school. So chances are, when they find out I'm at school, they will come to the school. He said, go to school. I was gutted. So, I've got to go to school. So I go to school. Can't remember much about the day that happened at school, apart from people coming up to me and being really, I don't know whether they were trying to be helpful, but it was very unhelpful, because the rumour that is now going around school is that I've beat up Gerard Lane.
Okay, the bloke who got kicked in the head. Right.
Says what? So, on one hand, I'm aware of people are saying that against the odds, I somehow came out of that scenario as a victor. Don't feel like it at all. But then I become really quite scared of the fact that if there is a rumour going around that I actually won that fight, there is a higher expectation of me, more people will come, and in particular, those people will come. Because if people are walking around saying that, I've, had a fight with somebody who's part of this large gang and won, they're coming for me. Scared to death at this point. So that evening, or that afternoon, I'm coming out of school, and as you rightly had said, you know where the bus stop is and everything, where we used to get on the bus to go home. It's jam-packed, and I'm looking across the road, and there are faces I don't recognise, but I know that they didn't go, haven't come out of school. And I remember at the time thinking, okay, it's going to happen again. And just as I'm wondering what on earth to do, to the left of this crowd, I see my dad stood by his car. And I remember thinking...
Your dad never came to pick you up, did he? So,
never.
Yeah.
We didn't have that sort of a relationship. And of all the times we've been at my house, you probably heard my dad have 2 or 3 conversations I was being told off in. All of them.
Mainly just him laughing at the wrestling.
Yeah. Right, exactly.
That was basically what I remember of my dad.
Ric Flair. Woo!
Stuff like that.
He loved it.
That was my old man. He would laugh at that sort of stuff. But we didn't have a relationship like that. So I immediately thought, thank God Dad's come to pick me up, and keep me safe. Fantastic. So I started to walk over to his car, and he just shook his head. And it confused me at first, because I'm walking towards him, and he keeps doing this. And it suddenly twigs that he's saying, no, don't come over to me, don't get in this car, get on the bus. So as I'm walking towards him, I veer off, I get on the bus, and it was a really scary ride all the way home, because I'm thinking, are people going to get on the bus? What's going to happen? Nothing happened. And because my old man refused to let all these people see me now need a lift from my dad to keep me safe, it never happened again. I appeared not to be scared, so there was no victim mentality here. My dad pretty much saved my life, my school career and everything, by refusing to let me get in his car. He followed the bus all the way home, but he never let me get in the car. And as far as parenting goes, my dad left lots to be desired. We didn't have a great relationship, but my God, I think that was some of the best parenting I've ever seen, ever. And as a professional parent now, I look at that and just think, wow, remarkable. We cut there, Joe. This is interesting, guys. This is really interesting. So the last part that I think we will now do is over the years. So we'll close this out now for the next 5 or 10 minutes with, so has this impacted our lives in any way, shape or form going forwards? What did this mean for our relationships? How did it feel when we went out to pubs, clubs in years to come? And where we're at with making peace with that now. And then we'll finish on that. And we're not going to dwell on it too long, but I think we close it out in the next 10 minutes. Feel good?
Yeah. Sure.
Okay then, Joe, we're going to go back into it. Okay, welcome back. Again, Clifford for AboutFace with Real Talk, and I'm still sat here with Rich Farrow and Mark Jones. So previously we have discussed what for me certainly was a very life-changing event, or maybe more life-impacting event. We've heard how the event itself affected each of us in the immediate sense, and a little bit afterwards, so like the next coming days. So I guess what I'm kind of leading into, or a very nice segue into, is, so how did that racial attack go on to form our collective personalities, our experiences of the world after that event? What happens as we grow older? How significant, if at all, was that to our development from young boys into young men, into very mature men with grey beards and kind of, you know...
No hair.
Yes, no hair, indeed. That's a commonality with all of us.
Yep.
At the time, believe you me, and I've got some photo booth pictures of us at the time when this would have happened. I'm going to see if we can somehow kind of have those appear here. At the time, we all had hair and looked very, very different.
Big curtains.
Yeah, massive. Even I had them, which is a whole nother problem.
Forgot about that.
You remember that funky...
Do you remember? Yeah. Like the Black Fergal Sharky.
Just the one. One side.
Wow, did I look like Jermaine Stewart? It did not suit me at all. I was very much trying to fit in. That's probably why they beat us up in the first place. I just looked dreadful. But okay. So here we are then in kind of the aftermath, the subsequent years that followed from that evening, from that night. Guys, talk to me. So, if it did, it might not have done. How did that kind of go on to impact relationships or your ability to socialise going forward from that point?
I was a bit surprised because that rugby club, I'd always just had a great laugh there.
Mm-hmm.
There'd never been any negative stuff. You know, even when I played rugby and got my arses kicked, you know, it was always a positive place. So I was really surprised that occurred there.
Yeah.
But then that wasn't anything to do with the actual club. It was the individuals who went there.
Yeah.
Who, you know, went there to drink watered down beer and probably try and cop off and get off with some girls, and you know, maybe that was the original reason they were there. And then they were like, "Oh, he's here, okay," and they can turn it into that. You know, I don't know. This is obviously many days before mobile phones and all the rest of it. So,
thank God.
You know, you assume they didn't run downstairs to use the payphone to ring people up and go, "Oh, come here," but I don't know. But so yeah, that I was really shocked about that. Just kind of the environment, that environment.
Yeah.
It did. I think we went through like a stage then of just going round Steve's house and drinking there. Not really, certainly not going into pubs. I don't really ever remember going into something with you, to tell you the truth.
But we didn't. Do you remember everyone used to go to the station and stuff like that, and we never went?
We never did that.
I think I remember, I don't know when this would have been, but I remember you saying to me, like, Rich, there's not many black people in Sutton, and me sort of not even really having thought that before, thinking, you're right, actually. And then I understood, like, why you might not want to go to the station.
It would have been a dangerous place for me to go back then.
Yeah.
Even though everyone went there.
Yeah. I mean,
it must have made you feel pretty isolated in a way.
It did, but again, the impact was more like, I'm really impinging on you guys, because, like, right, we kind of seem to have managed that by not being anywhere where we were likely to be in that scenario. So we'd get drunk in the park rather than go to...
But we did have...
We had to, we had to run away in the park, didn't we?
Yeah.
We were near Winley.
Stone started appearing in the air near
flying
our
through.
heads,
One time,
just out of the blue. We
Yeah.
had to. Remember, we had to jump over that
Brook, yeah.
Yes.
the brook.
Yes.
So I remember,
went the wrong way at Windley. We're like, oh,
yeah,
shit.
Yeah.
we've got this brook
Yeah.
to jump over. I remember jumping over it, probably following you two.
Yeah.
You'd done it, thinking, right, okay, come on, and I did it, but I landed.
I remember this.
The back of my ankle basically went up my bum. And I was like, oh, God, that hurts. But thinking, well, you know, it was worth it because here we all are. We've jumped over the brook and nothing happened.
Yeah, I remember it. I
Yeah, I
remember
do
that.
remember that.
But for me, that was kind of like, all right, who knows whether it was racial or not? It was, you know, lads taking the piss, really. But actually, I think you're right. We ended up spending a lot of time around Steve Franklin's, around mine, around, you know, either one of yours. But we kind of started to manage where we went. The innocence of being able to just go anywhere went overnight. Whether we knew it at the time as a conscious thing or not. One, and here's the way in which I now look back at it, is we started managing where we went and knowing what environments we were going into. But it also coincided with us drinking a huge amount.
Cider.
We drank before, I know. And we always used to get together and have a jar. But if you remember, at this point, we start drinking heavily.
You two did. Because I couldn't do it. I'd just be sick and pass out in the corner.
All right, I think you're right there. So we drank a lot and were sick.
Vodka.
You just got sick.
Yeah. And smoking
Yeah,
and everything.
yes.
Navy's rum.
Yes,
I
remember that.
I remember
More than
gave you the money. It was like, right, so could you get some bottles of Banksy's? And at that time, they used to do them in like 2 litre plastic bottles.
Yeah.
You know, here's the money from the veg shop. I was working in Clifford, some Banksy's, and you give, oh yeah, I'll have this, lovely. And then you'd come out with a bottle of Navy's rum and a packet of fags, and it was like, I don't want Navy's rum. I wanted some Banksy's bitter. What are you doing to me?
Yeah,
and then we'd have to like walk along and drink this, like, oh. You know, just
You never stopped though, man.
Yeah, well, I know we struggled through, but you know, it was daft experiences like that. I remember it.
But we were drinking a lot between the three of us. Well, practically between us
I
two,
think,
and then
yeah.
we'd have a
A little
capful.
sip.
Yeah.
here and there.
Yeah,
But we were doing 2 litre
we were doing silly
bottles
volumes of
rum
yeah, bonkers
like a
stuff.
night over the weekend.
Yeah,
And at the time, so the ladies we were hanging around with, the girls that we'd hang around with, Kim, Natalie, Hayley, Andrea,
yeah.
would have Mad Dog 2020 and stuff like that. But
White
again,
Lightning and
White Lightning, stuff
yeah.
like that. And they would drink, you know, more like the average teenager would. But I know we were drinking dangerous amounts of alcohol at the time.
We were drinking stupid volumes, man. There was no kind of, let us savour this bouquet. It was like,
Yeah.
you know, get absolutely ridiculous and fall over usually.
I've since found out that I've got an actual like intolerance to alcohol, so I can actually excuse myself.
Look at you.
Gilbert syndrome, if anyone's interested.
Okay.
You know?
Really?
Blimey.
Yeah, something to do with your liver, bilirubins, and your liver
Wow.
processing alcohol.
Okay.
So that's why I was always the guy throwing up after like a half a shandy.
We should stop taking the piss now.
Well, yeah. Well, you know, I always, because I remember there was one terrible evening round at Steve's. Well, this doesn't have anything to do with.
Oh, go on,
Okay, so I remember there was one terrible evening round at Steve's when we hadn't seen you for weeks because you were probably not wanting to get absolutely paralytic like we did because he, you know, made you
Rings the
feel
bell.
so ill, and you'd been doing drum stuff. You know, band stuff with some people, and then you came round and we were like, oh, I can't remember what we were saying, but we were like, oh, you've been deafening us out, you miserable git. And we were absolute numpties. You know, when I could actually stand up and talk, I was one of them. And then I remember you were just like, oh, screw this, and you
I remember
left. And we were all steaming, and we were like, oh, where's he gone? Where's he gone? And then Shields was going to jump in his bloody mother's Metro, who I think it was. I don't know if he was I don't think we'd passed tests then, but he was there in his mother's Metro. He was going to jump in that and drive off to find you when he couldn't. You know, he fell down the stairs trying to get down the stairs. Wow. And I remember I rang your mum, I rang your house, because we were like, well, what's happened to him? Where's he gone? Oh my God, is he all right? And we felt terrible. And I'm there, and it was probably 11:30 or something. But, you know, you felt like it was 3 o'clock in the morning. And I was like, well, I've got to ring, I've got to find out where he is. And we rang, and your mum was like, oh, he's here. He's okay. Okay, right. Sorry, we've been stupid. Yes, okay, well, he's home safe. Bye, Mark.
It's quite a nice walk home, actually.
Yeah.
All 3 hours of it, whatever it was.
Yeah, it would have taken a while.
I remember when I walked past people going, you know.
Yeah, trying to appear massive.
All right.
Much deeper voice than you actually had.
It is interesting because I remember that period of time also, and I do remember you kind of disappearing off the scene for a bit. And I can't remember too much about the moment where we stopped drinking so much, and I think it was probably when we stopped hanging out quite as much. You know, sixth form happens and whatnot. I'm not at sixth form, I go into work and stuff like that. But I would truly say, looking back on that period of time, I would say alcoholism, yeah. I mean, I was drinking before going to school. And yeah, and pretty much all day long. And without a shadow of a doubt, at the weekend, we would do in between us maybe 2 bottles of 2 litre kind of spirit per weekend.
Yeah, we were bananas.
It was bonkers.
We were, yeah. I didn't, I personally wasn't drinking during the week. It was weekends, you know, Friday, Saturday night, were absolutely, you know,
paralytic,
smashing it and smoking like a chimney and yeah, you know, there's a saying, isn't there, youth is wasted on the young. You don't understand what you're capable of when you are that age, and you don't understand the damage you do to yourself, you know, in all sorts of ways, sort of thing. And I look back on it now and I think, what an absolute numpty. Yeah. And then, you know, but things kind of changed. I mean, like I said, I can't ever remember going into Sutton with yourself to drink. And then I kind of, that would have been about the time when, because I didn't go into sixth form, I went into resits, GCSE resits, because I bombed at that. So I was doing that and bit of rugby till I knackered me back, and then that kind of stopped, but carried on drinking there. And then I was with a young lady, which, you know, first experience, and just that, you know, she became my life sort of thing, and I just did whatever she wanted to do, whatever she told me to do. You know, I lost contact with pretty much everyone. Which was, and you know, you look back on it now, and I think about the conversations that my mum and dad had with me about, you know, trying to, well, you know, it's very nice that you're with this girl and you're mad about her, but, you know, don't forget your mates, don't forget your mates. And they try and tell you, but you don't listen. You don't. Because you're not thinking with your head. Yeah. And, you know, there's things happen, you can look back and theorise the driving forces behind them. And I think, like you said, after that happened, we definitely kind of just hung around in our people, you know, in each other's houses, as opposed to going to places. And then, I mean, I might be wrong, but I think maybe there was some guys kind of in Streatley that you started hanging out with, and you know, you used to come out of your house down the road right to the traffic lights left, and then you went down, there was a big pub on the next set of traffic lights. Hardly. Yeah. I think kind of you started maybe going there a bit more often than you had previously, because, you know, still able to get a drink, but it's just down the road. And also, you know, people's houses in Streatley as well. I remember there was one girl's house we went to for a bit of a get together. You know, there was
the one that got trashed.
No, well, I don't think he got trashed, but I mean, I might have been unconscious in a corner. I don't know.
Yeah,
Maybe
we probably
got
were.
wrecked around me, but
Yeah.
yeah, kind of things changed. I think in the immediate aftermath, yes, we monitored where we went. We kind of avoided places, and then I think not through any kind of, well, I don't want to hang around with this person anymore. I don't want to hang around with this person anymore. We just kind of, you know, I was doing resits. You weren't doing resits, were you? You were doing actual A levels,
Yeah.
big clever person
Very
A
good
levels.
Brain.
Yeah,
Right.
brainy bollocks over there. So
Can we go back to my 3 E's?
You know,
I'm not talking about taking drugs.
I was there doing a typing bloody examination. You know, that's what I spent a year doing, typing and sitting on the bank smoking. And I never went to one IT lesson. And just my entire life focused about this one human being.
Well, at least you're having a good
And-
time there. I mean, you know.
I was having a lovely time. But obviously, you look back on it and you think, well, yeah. What if, isn't it? It's all about you can turn around and critique things quite badly, but I think we just kind of started hanging around doing different things, you know.
As you do.
Yeah.
And it wasn't I don't feel like anyway from my point of view it was a conscious kind of, well, can't be hanging around with him because God knows what'll happen. Can't be hanging around with him because God knows what'll happen. I think, you know, you got into your drumming and your band. You were there with Dave, you know, guitarist, and Dan. You know, Miles. It wasn't a kind of, oh, well, I don't want to hang around with him. It's just
But then
you started doing that, you know.
But then you
Yeah, we
came
were-
to the gigs and stuff, and then like many years later, you came to see us. Well, both of you, didn't you?
We did.
A while ago.
Yeah,
in
I
Birmingham.
remember going to Little Aston Parish Hall,
Yes.
and you bastard letting me just walk out in front of the stage on my own. You'd all done like a madness train, and like, oh, isn't this brilliant? Let's do it again. You lead the way, Mark, and you just left me wandering across, looking like an absolute donkey.
That was my fault, mate. 'Cause
And I turned around, I was like, where the fuck? And you were all just in the kitchen laughing.
that was hilarious because what it
Um,
was is, you know, this. I think we'd seen it on a film,
Yeah,
whereby
well, it's-
we were all going to go like kind of this conga across the stage whilst you were playing, and I had the idea to just set him up a treat. So I said, yeah, let's do this thing, and we were going to kind of stomp across the stage. And I said, I'll go second, Mark, you go first. And Mark, yeah. So Mark is there,
Off
and I
he
go,
jumps.
go. So I do that. Mark starts, and I just stopped everyone. Mark by himself has gone across the stage doing this.
Yep.
And look back and go, oh, you bastards!
Yeah.
I remember dying. Oh, it was funny.
I remember there was a guy there wearing a brick on a
Yeah,
chain round his
John
neck.
Clay.
I don't know. I just thought that must hurt.
But that
Smacking you on the chest.
Thinking of like, that I don't remember there being any kind of like trouble there though.
No, there
with
wasn't.
regard to what we were talking about
No.
before.
But again, it was very controlled environment. So there was that at the Little Aston Parish Hall. We went to one at Shempston. You did a gig at Shempston. We went to that. But these were really controlled environments.
Yeah, because all the parents were
I
there.
was going to say, your
Parents
mum and dad
were
were
there.
transporting a drum kit. You know, we couldn't. It wasn't like you were
Yeah.
driving at the time, and
No, it was still
Dave's
kids.
mum and dad with
Yeah.
guitars and all the rest of it. So,
Incidentally, one of the parents did get a pint poured over his head at at Shenston. Yeah,
I'm glad you didn't tell me. I probably broke down.
and he was about 7 foot.
Oh,
Long,
blimey.
this guy.
I've
Yeah.
definitely broke down. But this is the thing. So I think from a conscious point of view, it happens on two different levels, I guess. The stuff that's happened incidentally because we are all growing up, you know, we're doing different things. You're doing the course and typing and so on. You're doing these stuff at A level, at sixth form and so on. I went into work stuff, so now tell a lie, I went to college first, joined the wrong queue and ended up on the wrong course and stayed doing that for like 18 months. I know. I wanted to learn how to rewire houses, got talking to this bird in the queue and walked into the wrong line and ended up learning how to fix TVs for 2 years. And then I became a door-to-door salesman, which is where I met
It's a vacuum,
Max.
wasn't it?
I was selling
Was it
vacuum
Vax?
cleaners. Kirby's.
Okay.
Kirby vacuum cleaners for many a year. That's where I met the missus. And funnily enough, I am drinking all the way through college. So in between lessons, me and my mates would go buy a load of cans, sit in a bus shelter in the middle of Warsaw, necking cans. I was drunk most of college. It wasn't until I met Max and came home, absolutely like smashed all off my face, to the point where I think she opened the front door and I just fell forward, face down, bang, in the porch. And she left me in the porch all night because she couldn't move me. Max is 5 foot and on me. And it was after that she had a serious conversation with me and kind of said, if this is what you think our life is going to be like, we need to quit now. And I stopped drinking at that point, or stopped drinking to excess anyway at that point. That's how I stopped drinking. So the conscious part of me developing this new social circle was the likes of you two and Johnny Cottrell, you know, me and Paul had kind of drifted at that point, and Nana and that. But there was a very conscious effort for me not to ever put you guys in that scenario again. So there was very much part of me that said, I don't want to ever experience that. And that's why, you know, because by then we could have called each other up and got together more. But I definitely thought, okay, I feel safe over here, and knowing that you weren't, I weren't in a situation where that could happen to you guys again, was what part of the reason why I didn't reach out. But, you know, here we are years later. I think one of the reasons I went into the roles that I have been in for, you know, 30 odd years now, as working with children in a caring capacity, becoming a house manager, responsible individual, etc., and then starting an anti-racism training company, was these experiences over a lifetime led me to understand that actually racism and the impacts of racism are far more than just unkind words, far more even than, you know, kicks and punches and so on. I think that racism itself affects people's lives unimaginably for a long period of time, generationally, can affect how we raise our children, what we do. We have come out of it as decent people with our own children who we raise to be good people, and haven't let, you know, what happened to us many, many years ago impact on that. We are raising good children, good families. We are strong in that. Not everybody is. Some people have that sort of scenario, and it changes how they feel about other people and the relationships they get into. What they emit and project on a day-to-day basis affects them deeply, and therefore affects other people around them. We seem to have taken that and still managed to come out on a path that we can be proud of. And I would like to say, you know, here and now, I'm so proud of you two, in as much as this could have changed how we feel about the world to such a detrimental, significant way. And I'm in this moment so proud and thankful that it didn't for you guys. So my sincere thanks to you both.
We didn't do a lot, mate.
You did enough, pal. You guys did enough. Okay, so unless anyone else has anything to add.
No, reminisce about you know, things at school and girls off camera. Doesn't have to.
We'll do that over some lunch now. Yeah. But guys, thank you so much for coming. Bless you all, and cheers. Thank you for appearing in Real Talk with AboutFace. Till next time. Bye bye. Guys, that was awesome.